Good Woche, gesunter Winter. It's the ptira of my friend Rabbi Moshe Hauer, Zachron Livracha, came as a complete shock, and but there hasn't been a moment to even sit down and arrange thoughts because, as everyone knows, we got notification about it on Thursday, and then next thing you know, you have to prepare for Shabbos again. You're clearing up for Yom Tov on Thursday, catching up on laundry and all that type of stuff, and then you still have to make Shabbos. It just hasn't been a minute to fully reflect or to share these stories that did instantly come back to me. I want to put things in perspective. That first of all, this is not a hesped, and this is not even a tribute. I'm not worthy. We were chaverim, we're in yeshiva together. But we shared a unique, nexus that we weren't just in Ner Yisroel in the same tekufa, and we were friendly. We were both talmidim by Rav Yaakov Weinberg at the same time. That was called the upper right corner, or called under the clock. We were, members of that chabura for first running. It's being makabel from Yaakov Weinberg. And, even back then we were friends. We also sat at the same lunch table consistently, midday yom. But there are those who are even closer to him, at that time. And let alone, I went to Eretz Yisrael to learn by Rabbi Moshe Hauer, and I stayed there for 22 years. So, of course, we naturally grew apart, but we were never strangers. As one of the stories will illustrate. We always a touch and go contact, even though 6,000 miles away. And there were times I had to reach out to him because I badly needed help, and he provided that help. From 6,000 miles away. And over the year, after I moved back to America, a little bit over 11 years ago, and even before that, when I would visit, he always was mechaber me to speak in his shul, and and not just a quick Torah. He gave me like long slots, the hour before Shabbos Mincha slot, or it's the Sunday after Shacharis. They had a chabura in the Sefer HaMitzvahs. I addressed that group at least once, and gave me a platform to present a thesis I have on explaining the order of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, which is it's a mystery to those who are students at a Rambam, the Seder of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, and he gave me a platform to present what I thought about it. And this was, it's two examples of two slots he gave me when I was in town. So we were friendly, but I definitely was not in his inner orbit, especially when he was, and I mean this in the most serious sense, when he was literally oila legedula and became a real leader, which and I have what to say about that in one of the stories I'm going to share with you. So there's those who are much more qualified and much more worthy to say divrei hesped and give a tribute and give a sketch of his godless, but to put it mildly, we were no strangers to each other, and I do want to share two stories that I may be one of the few people in the world that know these stories, and they should be known. And I say it'll be a particularly meaningful to the people at this nexus that were in yeshiva in our tekufa in the 80s. He stayed past that. I had gone to Eretz Yisrael, and he was there in Kailo. But for 80s, talmidim from the 80s who were talmidim of Rav Yaakov Weinberg in that upper right corner of the base marriage, under the clock. I think these two stories will resonate to people on that nexus. And I just have to add one more thing before I get to the stories, that the last time I saw Rabbi Moshe, and you'll forgive me if I naturally slide into calling him Moshe, as I always did, including the very last time I saw him exactly a year ago, just about a year ago, this time last year. And I'll tell you where it was. It was in Beis Berish, the shul I daven in. It's headed by Rabbi Moshe Hauer. So in Beis Berish, he was there with his shwager, Rabbi Avromi Farber, who's also a friend of mine. He was catching mincha there. I saw him and decided to have some fun with him. We're friendly, and I cheppered him in a playful way about something about this to do with the OU, and he had his own playful response to that, neither of us knew it would be the last time we'd see each other, and I'm telling you, if I would have known it was the last time I'd see him, I would have had more meaningful things to say to him. And a lot of things I would have wanted to say to him if I knew that this was our last time we'd see. It was the last time we saw each other, last time we spoke to each other, exactly a year ago. And what we said, that's not for now. But it was, I assure everyone, it was a playful exchange between two old friends. But I'm telling these stories not in chronological order because I'm going in ascending order of what's more meaningful and touching to me. So the first story I want to share with you, which again has to do with how we were talmidim of Yaakov Weinberg. So we're talking about 1999, and it's Leil Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. Right? The Tanis would start the next morning. And I'm in Eretz Yisrael, living in Neve Yaakov at the time, and Rosh, as everyone knows, was critically ill. He was diagnosed with this terminal illness right before Shavuos that year, and he had a rapid deterioration, and we were all worried sick. I had just visited Baltimore. Visited Rosh like a couple of weeks before that. He had to see him in bed in his pajamas. He wasn't well enough to be up and around. On that particular day that I came to see him, and we were worried sick about the Rosh, worried sick, and we were davening for him consistently, consistently and constantly. Anyway, so it's Leil Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, and it's about 11 p.m. Israel time. Probably a drop later, close to midnight. Phone rings. Pick up. It's Yochanan. It's Moshe Hauer, and I thought that he was coming to give bad news. And I said, "How's Rosh Shiva? What's Rosh Shiva?" Says he's critical. He's still alive, but he's critical, and in his way, he decided to, he didn't get directly into what he wanted from me. He prefaced, he said, "Let me tell you something that the Chafetz Chaim writes in one of his Sfarim, that that he was a big bucky in Maseches Chagiga, constantly Chazir Maseches Chagiga. He may not have known much else of Torah, but Chagiga was his thing." Constantly learning Chagiga. And that person was, a lonely person, didn't have a wife, didn't have kids, or at least kids that lived near him, and he took ill, got very ill. And some mystery woman, turned up and like nursed him in his final days, took care of him, nursed him, and Vayelapella, the townsfolk, took note, that there's this woman that came to care for this guy when he's al eres davai, in his final days, to make him as comfortable as possible. And, at one point, someone in the town asked her, like, "Who are you taking care of this, lonely man?" So, "My name is Chagiga." And, shortly thereafter, the man died and this woman vanished. And the point that the Chafetz Chaim makes is that, this was the Malach that is connected the Masechta of Chagiga, that came to take care of someone who learned Maseches Chagiga so often. That's what he told me in the name of, from the Chafetz Chaim, and I have to say to my great Shem, never bothered to look it up for myself. I took his word for it, like I took his word for it at the time. I always took his word for it, but that's so as it were, the Malach of Maseches Chagiga, came to take care of this man who was so hoige constantly, in Maseches Chagiga. So he says, Yochanan, he told me, the Rosh Yeshiva is very big in Torah Rambam. Very, very big, and it's true as far as understanding. Again, this video is meant for the talmidim, the Rosh Yeshiva. So, they don't need any explanation that he was a chad bedora and how we could touch up a Mishnah Torah, a shtick Mishnah Torah, and read it and be medayik, everything. The achronim are, Amel, just on the first reading, you could see in it, all the diukim and all the possibilities, everything that the achronim were Amel on, he could see it in, and then of course had his own take, which he felt was, very faithful to what the Rambam really means. He was a chad bedora in Rambam, right? As he said it. So he said, as I said, Roshi was, it's the Rambam is always, his Rambam shiurim were classic. And then even his shir clothes on Gemara was the central. Always, the center was the Rambam. Always, Shitas Rambam. So, the Rosh Yeshiva was very, at the time, he was still alive at the time, very into Torah Rambam. So I had this discussion with Rabbi Weinberg, and I discussed this story with her, and we came up with the idea that we should send a chabura of B'nai Torah to the kever of the Rambam, that the Rambam should be melitz, for Rosh Yeshiva, just like Maseches Chagiga came to care for the person who learned Chagiga so much. Let's try to activate the Rambam, to do for the Rosh Yeshiva. And I told the idea to the Rebbetzin. The Rebbetzin thought it was a great idea, but said, "But who'll do it?" The Rambam's buried in Eretz Yisrael. So I said, I threw out your name. So I was thinking to myself, "Yeah, thanks so much." Right? So I told you, Yochanan Berghofer. Yochanan Berghofer lives in Eretz Yisrael. I'll reach out to him. We'll get him to do it. And then he says, you got to do it, right? I said, Moshe, it's almost midnight here, and a tinus is coming. This is not really b'chdei shias, and we're talking about, getting how to arrange it right now. It's middle of the night, and for tomorrow it's a tinus. Shivas B'tanis, one of the long and hard tanesim. I could, maybe after the tanis. Said, we don't have that long. We don't know if we have that long. It has to be now. And I said, you're giving me an impossible task. I said, what are you going to do? You're going to do nothing? What are you going to do? All right. And he laid into me in a nice way, but, and he assumed it's going to get done. He just felt it, that, this is going to happen. So he, without even asking me if it'll happen, said, Yochanan, when you or whoever you're going to send to the Rambam, you don't daven to the Rambam. I said, thank you very much, Moshe. I know that also. I'm just relating the way it happened. I doubt he just said that because he was very concerned, and he was right in a way, because I personally did not go, as I'll explain. I sent a chabura. So, I guess he felt that issuing that warning, which Rosh Yeshiva was very makbid on, and we speak about in our Sefer Yud Gimel Ikrim, which is his turn, Yud Gimel Ikrim, the severity of only, davening to Hashem alone, and even Kivrei Tzadikim, you never speak to the deceased. Okay, I guess it was out of genuine concern. Maybe, well, I'm assuming he told me that, as in to tell others, That remember it's you're davening to Hashem by the kever Rambam that Hashem should make it, that the Rambam should be in this error to be Melitz Yosher. Right, what the Mishpur says was in Tov Kuf Pei Aleph, I think it is. Right, so okay, but just at the times, you remember you're not davening Torah. So I know that too, but I'm sure what he really meant was, in the case I don't go, which I didn't, as I'll explain, instruct the others, appropriately. So he was so confident it was going to happen, and I said, listen, give me an hour. All right, I'm not going to sleep now. I'm going to work on this. I don't know how I'm going to work on it. It's midnight already, but give me an hour. Let's see. And of course, he also guaranteed me that the expense will not be a problem. Whatever it is, I'll get you the money. He said, just okay. So, my first, first occurred to me to reach out to a very old-time talmid of Yaakov Weinberg, the Ephraim Mishan, who lives in the old city, and I woke him up. I called him. I woke him up. And I said, Ephraim, the Yeshiva's critical. Would you go to Kever Rambam? Would you do that? I said, yeah. Okay, great. I need another 9 guys. Do you think you get me another 9 guys to go to Kever Rambam? To down for Yeshiva, and tomorrow, not after the Tainus, on the Tainus, on Shivas Trans, to go to Tveria. Says, I'm in, but I don't know who else I could rope in. I don't know. Okay. So I thought for a second after I hung up with him, and there's a bacher that was learning at the Mir. His name was Elon Halberstadt, a British bacher who subsequently became son-in-law of Akiva Tatz. So I had his cell phone number. I reached out to Elon Halberstadt. I said, look, this is the story. I don't know who's still up, in your Dira, or in adjoining Diras. But this is what I need. I got one. I got Rabbi Moshe. I need another you and another 8 guys to go in a van. I'll take care of finding the van. Go in a van to Tveria, to daven on the Tainus. Yes, on the Tainus. Go to Tveria and daven for Yaakov Weinberg's by the kever of the Rambam. Are you in? So yeah, but I said, listen, Elon, nothing like trying. Go around the deer. Go around a few deers. See, it's a chance. Go to the kever Rambam. To daven for a one of the leading Rosh Hayeshiva in the world. Anyway, so waited an hour or so, and Elon came back. He came back and said, look, I have it. I have a group of guys that are willing to go. All right, so where do I send the van to meet you? So we met up, with the address of his dira, and he said it'll be him and another 8 bachrim, and Ephraim Mishan would join them there at the dira. Okay, and I reported back to Ephraim Mishan, and we're talking about now. It's like 1 a.m. ish or so. So I got the guys. Now I got to get the van. And I said, okay, we'll try. I remember it was Monio Barilan, one of the other, big taxi companies that all the Yid in Yerushalayim use. And I figured, who's going to be in the office at this hour? It's the graveyard shift. If there even is a dispatcher, it's probably a brain dead guy. It's the graveyard shift. But I got lucky. Lucky. I mean, it was all Siyat Shema. It was all the schus of Moshe Hauer and his determination somehow influenced the cosmos. I got a dispatcher who seemed to have been one of the proprietors, and then I explained to him what I need. And he took tender. She left me Beit Yisrael, Shchurat Beit Yisrael, Litveria, Haloch v'Chazor. Right? And made the reservation and then set a price. And it's like about 3 a.m. I went to a Kaspomat, we call it ATM machine, to get the money out, for them to give the driver. I dropped it off, by Elon Halberstadt. I actually that part was fuzzy. I know I got out the money, the cash to pay the taxi company, and I don't remember how, but how Rabbi Hauer got me the money back. I don't remember if it was at the time he sent it to me or he reimbursed me. He definitely paid, but I just really got the money out at 3 a.m. and then so at 3 a.m. everything's misudar for tomorrow, and I made the decision, since I was a Rosh Yeshiva at the time, that I would not be mevatel my shiur to go, because it's Talmud Torah the Rabbim, and that's also a big schus. And then the Talmud Torah the Rabbim will be a schus Rosh Yeshiva, and I have these other 10 others that I'm sending. And so I called Rabbi Hauer back, and he didn't pick up. Then I left him a voice message saying, "Look, you tell the Rebbitzin it's done. Consider it done. I arranged it. Your schus, it worked out. They'll go first thing in the morning, and it's all set. It's all set. And whatever you do not call back. I have to get some sleep." That's what I said. And and the next day after Shachris, so I called Elon Halberstadt, and I called Ephraim Shannon. When I called Elon Halberstadt, Ephraim Shannon just walked in, and it was set. And then the van came on time. Everything was, and yes, and I made sure to pass on the warning. You're davening to Hashem, you're not davening to the Rambam. Made sure to make sure everyone was clear on that. And I also told Elon Halberstadt, listen, it's a long ride. So let me tell you a piece of Torah from the Rosh Yeshiva that you should say it should be a schus for him, and something which is very apropos to you. The halacha is that the Rambam copies down practically the verbatim, the Lush Chazal, I believe, in Hilchos Talmud Torah, that a mitzvah she'ev shel asosei de'acherim, so you do it, right? You do it, and then v'yachzor letalmudo, and then you go back after mission accomplished. You go back to your learning, v'yachzor letalmudo. So Rosh Yeshiva asks this v'yachzor letalmudo. Why does the Rambam add that just say it, mitzvah she'ev shel asosei de'acherim, so you got to do it. Which someone had to go to Kever Rambam. It wasn't there was no one else willing. As an example, it's pikuach nefesh. So mitzvah she'ev shel asosei de'acherim, if that's a good example. So you do it. You can vatal Torah to do it. So why is Rav? But as soon as the mitzvah is accomplished, of course you go back to your learning, because your chi of Talmud Torah didn't disappear. You had a exemption. Right, you were your chi of Talmud Torah was suspended for you to do this mitzvah that no one else could do. Was suspended for that. Fine, but of course, what's that mean to think otherwise? Think otherwise. That after you've done your mission, that that you don't resume learning. Of course, you resume your learning. Your chi of Talmud Torah is ever present and then kicks in as soon as your exemption is over. So why is wrong to say v'yachzor Talmud? That's partial. I didn't get a lifelong exemption from Talmud Torah because I, did a mitzvah she'ev shel asosei de'acherim. That's Rosh Yeshiva's kasha. And he says what the Rambam is teaching you, v'yachzor letalmudo, means, immediately. Right, the stress is not that you're chayiv. Of course, you're chayiv Talmud Torah, but let's say like this, as Rosh Yeshiva illustrated at the time. You go to do your mitzvah she'ev shel asosei de'acherim, and okay, so now you went there, and now you see once you're in the area, you know what? I'm here already. Let me pop into the grocery. I got to pick up some. I'm here already anyway, so you delay getting back to your learning, right? So says the Rambam's teaching you, so you were looking for an excuse. You were looking for an excuse to, so you're going to be nitva on bittul Torah on that. You say, well, I'm out already. You're going to be nitva on bittul Torah. Right, it shows that it was nichalach, to have this, be away from your learning, but there's a positive message also that if you immediately resume learning as quickly as you can, there will be no tviyah of bittul Torah on the time that it took for you to get to the mitzvah and the time that it took for you to get back. That there's no tviyah of bittul Torah on that. But that's bitnai, that v'yasu tamudo immediately. If you say, well, I'm away from the Gemara right now anyway, I'm away from my shtender anyway, let's just chaparine here, there, you'll be nitva on all the time that you weren't actually actively engaged in that mitzvah she'ef shasosei decher. All right, that was it. So it's apropos for you guys. You're going to do the mitzvah of davening for Rosh at the Kever Rambam, and there's like the hours and hours that it takes to get to Tver, hours that it takes back, So very apropos. V'yachzor tamudo. Make sure to learn something as quickly as you can after mission is accomplished. So you get will be no tviyah of bittul Torah even on the time that of getting to the mitzvah and the time to return from the mitzvah. Right, and it's a word that's very apropos for you guys. And say this word, it should be a Hayeshiva. Yeah, and then they were off, and they were. This is like I said, right after Shachar. We're talking about let's say 8 a.m. ish. And that's all whatever. Hanging around the house and. It's about an hour and a half or so later, like we're talking about 9:30, approaching 10 a.m. I had not yet gotten to the base medrash. And the phone rings. And it's he couldn't, the only words I heard was, he was very choked up. Yochanan, Baruch Dayanemes. And then he was all, very shaky, could barely get those words out. And I understood, it's Rosh was nifter. And, and then, and through tears in his eyes, he said, I know this wasn't easy for you. I thank you. And the Rebbetzin, she knows you did it. And she thanks you also, really, from the bottom of her heart. She really thanks you. And that's it. And we both started crying. He was crying already. And so we ended the conversation. But it was, I'd say, Baltimore time was the dead of night, 3 a.m. or so. He was up, monitoring the situation, Rosh and he was mindful enough to call me and to let me know the situation, which that impressed me, that he had the presence of mind to let me know immediately because of what we were trying to do. And so he was probably one of the first people to notice she was nifter, and I was one of them also because he immediately called me at 3 a.m. his time. And so just to finish off the story, after a minute of thought, I realized I have to try to stop the van, or at least to modify their mission, because to daven for someone who's nifter is a tfilas shav, right? So I called the van, and I believe I called Elon Halberstadt's phone, and I said I felt the protocol demands that the senior talmid of the yeshiva should hear it first. I said, put Ephraim Mishan on the phone. And I said, Ephraim, and he knew, he had a feeling that I was calling with, these tidings, and he didn't want to accept that. So he started joking, how's it going, and just like, he did not want to hear. And he was trying to, push the conversation, because I said, Ephraim, you know why I'm calling. It's over. Baruch Dayanemes. And he broke down crying. Said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And he was sobbing. Those his words he was repeating over and over. What are we going to do? What are we going to do now? What are we going to do? All right, but the message got out to the van, and we ended the conversation, and as it was relayed to me later from Elon Halberstadt, that Rabbi Moshe took the decision that they should just turn around. They were 20 minutes out from the Rambam's kever. Something like that. They're very close, and he tells her, we didn't come here for ourselves. Right, we came to Dam for Rosh Hashiva, and that's our mission. We didn't come here to have a visit Kvarim Stam Kacha. So he gave the decision to turn the van around. And and on the way back, Elon Halberstadt said that word from Rosh Hashiva. So and this was minutes after the P'tira. Just minutes after the P'tira already. Son Rosh Hashiva's Torah was said over. I have some. I have to. You forgive me, as some clown that's trolling me, and I don't know why. Anyways, if you see his comments on the screen, please ignore. Some clown is trolling me. I do not know why. Anyways, I have no idea what this clown is. Kitzer. Anyways, the getting back to this is just it occurred to me afterwards that and I wrote this in a letter to the Rebbitzin, that the Rosh Hashiva was Hoga in the Torah of the Rambam so much that it was time that they met in person, and it was not to be delayed. So and Ephraim Mishan's son, Baruch Mishan, visited Baltimore, was there during the Shiva, and reported that the Rebbitzin, she liked that. It wasn't in vain. It was just that the Rebbe wanted the Rosh Hashiva and the Rambam to meet sooner. All right, that's just a story that not many people know about the attempt to send a van full of B'nai Torah to Dam for Rosh Hashiva at the Kever Rambam, the Velo Istaya Milsa. Like I said, it was time for them, the Rosh Hashiva and the Rambam, to meet in person. And the Rebbe was Moscow. That's, anyways, that's just one story that I think is very, and again, it was, you'll forgive me, I'm sliding back into how I knew him. It was Moshe Hauer's initiative. It was his leadership. He managed to pull it off from 6,000 miles away. And a nice story for this. Like I said, the nexus, the talmidim from the 80s, or talmidim of Yaakov Weinberg. I just wanted that story preserved. And you'll forgive me if I'm a little bit distracted by some clown who's invaded my screen. Anyways, but the story now going back 12 years earlier than that. Wish there's a way to block the comment. I wonder if I could just want to block the comments. I don't know why this Schmendrick. There we go. Just had to. Someone's just trolling me. I have no idea who and why. Kids are Manias. But I was the story that really is very moving to me and hit me like a ton of bricks when I heard about Rabbi Moshe's P'tira. we're going now 12 years earlier that, or she was nifter in 1999, I said. We're going back 12 years when, you'll forgive me if I call him as I always called him and always knew him, Moshe. My friend Moshe Hauer. Moshe got married and he got married young. I don't know if he was even 22 yet at the time of his chuppah. If he was a very young 22. He got married in, I believe it was 87. 87. I don't think it was 88. I think 88 he was already quite married. No, it was 87. 87. Flashing back to his l'chaim when I danced with him. Anyway, so he got married young, and so we, his chaverim, were all young guys. So young man, 21 years old, as much as he was, a chosh v'bacher, but of course, he's going to need quite a few years in koilo before, going out into the big world. It wasn't even clear at the time what he was going to do in the long run. His next step was to learn in koilo. So we're at the Sheva Brachas, his Sheva Brachas. Like I said, we're all kids, 20, 21-year-olds, and the Sheva Brachas was hosted by his new brother-in-law, Aaron Doe Friedman, Yibadal Chaim Tevim. It was, they married sisters. The Baumgarten girls. So there's a Sheva Brachas being hosted by Aaron Doe Friedman, and the Rosh Yeshiva walks in. I think he was there for the whole Suda, and the Rosh Yeshiva, it was his turn to speak, and so now again, I could imagine that a lot of people see this video just wondering what the big deal is, and I say I'm speaking for. My chevra, the chevra from the 80s, who are talmidim of Yaakov Weinberg. I'm speaking for them, and if it doesn't mean anything to you, say it. It's not, I'm speaking to a very unique nexus, our chabura by the Rosh Yeshiva in the 80s, right? So the talmidim who I'm really addressing with this video all know, but for those who might be interested anyway, I'll explain that by Rav Yaakov Weinberg, he was a very exacting man, and not just in his lucid thinking, but very makpid on exactness in language. Well, and not just in being medayik. That he saw anything strange, he could see a diuk, and he always saw the diuk lefi, the style of the rishon. Science not right. There's an inference here that needs to be made, but it wasn't just in his learning; it was in his whole hanhaga and all his speaking. Very exacting, always choosing the right words. Demanding accuracy and accuracy of expression. And he demanded that from us, his talmidim. If he didn't demand it from you, it's because you weren't a talmid, right? But for his talmidim, who he took under his wing, to develop, he was very makpid on, you say things exact, you say things accurately, you say things as they really are. Not just else, not lying and not fibbing and not exaggerating, but, say things accurately. And, I'll give you an example, and these examples are not necessarily for the real talmidim, who I hope are getting this video and who this video is addressed to. But for those who, they weren't talmidim but may be interested. So just an example. And I bring this down in my sefer, in my tribute to Rav Yaakov Weinberg, my Evan Shasi on Yud Gimel Ikrim, which I know Moshe had. He went on and bought it when he heard it came out. I was living in Ner Yisroel, and it came to Baltimore. He made sure to get his hands on it. So I said once, Rosh Yeshiva asked me, was Rebel in the base medrash test. If my memory serves me right, he was not. He looked at me, he gave me a piercing said, why should your memory not serve you right? Well, why did you say something so stupid? Right? Those words. Why did you say something so stupid? The word stupid he didn't actually say, but he said it with that tone. Why did you say such a thing? Why should your memory not serve you right? Now, everyone knows if you grew up in America, right? That's a common saying. Memory serves me right. It's but Rosh didn't go for these things. So what if everyone says it? You say what you mean. What, you think your memory is faulty? So I had to think for a second. We had picked him up from the airport when he asked me that. So I had to be true to what was being preached. He didn't actually turn. He was in the front seat. I was in the back seat. He didn't fully turn around to face me, but he did turn his head and berated me. Why should your memory not serve you right? Why did you say such a thing? So I had to recalibrate. What I meant to say was that I wasn't actually looking out whether he was there or not. That's what I mean to say. So I don't think I saw him, but I wasn't actively looking for him either. I guess that's what I meant to say. Okay, he kind of accepted the explanation, asked the guy who was driving the car, maybe your memory works better. Right? He was sticking it to me, right? Was a barrel in the base medrash today. All right, so that's an example. The Rosh Yeshiva, and if he demanded from others, Kal v'chomer, he was that way. He was very exacting with what he said, no hyperbole, right? And for his real talmidim, he tried to train them that way also. And everything I'm saying right now is totally redundant, to ones who are the talmidim, which is the people I'm really addressing, the people from that chabur, upper right corner, right, under the clock chevra from the 80s, right, late 80s. So going back to the story that I want to relate, that came back to me and hit me like a ton of bricks. I think I could say that, if you would approve, because it really did hit me hard. This story that I'm about to tell you, when I heard of the Ptira, which happened, as we all knew that Rabbi Hauer's besigdu lasai, serving the Klal in a very powerful position in the OU, which is in itself a powerful organization, And so Rosh was speaking at the Shavach, talking about what a great guy he is, and talking about, the future. So now, just to get, what would you say? What would you say as a young man, a great-looking guy, great midas, Baal Kishrin, Masmid, right? But he's 21 years old, right? And next step in life is he needs a few years in Kailo, right? As accomplished as he was, everyone does. What would you say? Talk about his bright future. What would you say? What would anyone say? He'll be a big Talmud Chacham. All right, he'll be a good husband. He'll be a good father. And you're not going out on a guy like Moshe Hauer, right? You're not going out on limbs saying that, because he was a Hayeshiva bacher, and that was his trajectory. But I'm saying, Talmud Chacham, right? He'll be a good, husband, father. That's not what Hayeshiva said. I mean, he may have mentioned something like that, but the main thing that he said was he's going to be a manhig. He used that word a few times. Manhig, a leader. And just to be accurate, I looked around the room to see if anyone was taken aback like I was, and they weren't, because they just put out the main course. People were concentrating on their food. I did not find anyone else in the room that would raise eyebrows together with me. Manhig? That's what you say about a 21-year-old? But not manhig. He said it a few times. Manhig. At least 3 times. And it's quite, not mechtese, why that word? Why that? Say what's, just about, perfectly certain, right? He will steig and he will be a Talmid Chacham, manik, a leader. So this story came back, and it was a kasha I had, and actually, just to tell the whole story, a couple of days later, I was speaking to Rav Shaya Yibadel Chaim Tov, Rav Shaya Milakovsky, senior member of the Kolom back then, because he was in the room. He was at that show. I said, "What do you suppose? Both talmidim of the Rosh Yeshiva. What do you suppose he meant? It's manik. So he thought for a second. Moshe wants to go into Rabbanos. I think that's what he meant. So say he'll be a Rav. He'll be a Rav. No, that's just it. So Shamakovsky said, I'm guessing the Shiva meant because Moshe wants to go into Rabbanos. That we, that much we knew that he had that aspiration. He was going to say, he'll be a Rav. He'll be a Talmid Chacham, he'll be a Rav. It's a manik. And then, he became a manik. He was a Jewish leader. Aside from being a Talmid Chacham and being a Rav, he was a manhig, right? He was a leader first in Baltimore, and then probably Mitsudaso Prusa over other areas, but then up in the OU, he was a manhig. He was a Jewish leader, and and it's an amazing thing. The Rosh Yeshiva, looked into his neshama and saw his kochos hanefesh, calculated his trajectory. He's going to be a manhig. The Rosh Yeshiva divined, right, at his Sheva Brachas, where he would end up, right? A Manig Yisrael. It's amazing, and that this story just came back to me, I understood what Rosh Yeshiva meant, and I was amazed that Rosh Yeshiva, could look into his kochos hanefesh and calculate the trajectory that this man is going to be a Jewish leader. 21 years old, with no next step in life is just to be in Kailo for who knows how long. And to me, it just, it stirred me deeply because, any thinking person who really cares, should ask himself, why did my neshama come to earth? What's my tafkid? And some people seize positions of prominence, and it's not their tafkid. They're not qualified for it. It's not. And if they are not unqualified, it's probably not the real reason they were born. They fell into it. They seized the power. It's Hashem is allowing it because it's the payoff for them, and because they must have done some good deeds. So but they're not getting olam haba for that deed. So they're going to get some covet, and so it's a payoff for them and a punishment for the door that they don't have a better person, right? Do we know? Do we know that we're doing our tafkid, what we were born to do, what we really meant to, the mission we were sent, our neshama was sent from heaven to do? Do we have that certainty? Even regarding the good things that we do, let alone are we doing the best we can? Everyone knows the famous story about the Nitziv. He made a big suda when he put out the Amek Sheh. Says, I was thinking at one point it would be a balabas, but then they'll ask me, where are all those svarim you could have written? You were sent to write all these svarim. Where are all these svarim you were meant to write? Rav Moshe Hauer did his tafkid. The Rosh Yeshiva saw it in him that this is what he was born to do, and he was very good at it. And Ashrei Chelko, that a man could come, at the end of his life, saying to the Ribono Shel Olam, I did my job. I went to where you sent me. I did my mission. Mission accomplished. It's literally mission accomplished because he didn't quit. The Rebbe Shalom took him. Ashrei Choko, a person could say to the Rebbe Shalom, go in front of Kisei HaKavod, say, I did my tafkid. I did what I was born to do. Ashrei Choko, Yhi Zichro Baruch.